So coming up this weekend is going to be UFC 312 taking place in Sydney, Australia, and this card I feel like has a really good prelims, but also a pretty weak main card. I mean, there's two title fights, but aside from that, there really isn't too much going on with the main card. Now, of course, before I do start in the video, I've got to address the elephant in the room. I went buzz cut. So me and Bitsam, we are buzz cut buddies. I kind of just realized that, it is a very harsh reality that I was losing a bit of hair on the top of my head, and instead of just trying to fight it, I thought, you know what, I'll just get a buzz. And honestly, I don't think it looks too bad. I'm just gonna wear hats every now and then as well. And another thing is, I don't have braces anymore, so now I have this retainer in the bottom of my mouth, and I kind of talk like I've got a little bit of a lisp because I haven't really gotten used to it just yet. I had braces for I think like 6 or 7 years because of course I had like multiple surgeries on my jaw in the time that I had braces, so they were kind of just there to hold my mouth together. Now another thing of course as well is I've been on vacation. I haven't been on vacation, I just haven't really been putting too much content up on the We Want Picks website. And there is a couple reasons for that. The main one really is I am very busy at the moment with disc golf. I have my national tournament on this weekend. In fact, that starts tomorrow. So hopefully I play pretty well, but also just kind of have a lot also kind of going on in the background at the moment, unfortunately, which is why I do bring this video to you guys late. But yeah, it should be a pretty decent card. I am actually looking forward to it quite a bit. Now, let's start talking about the first fight on the night of the Tapology order, of course. Hyun Park is going to be fighting against Nyamjargal Tumendemberel. I think that this is a decent fight for Hyun Park. Now, of course, I have seen that Angelo does disagree with me on this one, but I do think that Hyun Park is a pretty decent fighter, and Nyamjargal Tumendemberel, as fun as he is, as interesting as he is, because if you do look into his Instagram, it really does seem like he does live that Mongolian nomad lifestyle. I think that just when it comes to MMA, despite having 9 professional fights, he does look a little bit too green. I don't really think at flyweight he has the best technique, and despite showing some grappling against his recent opponent Carlos Fernandez, of course, in that fight which he was out wrestled for a lot of it, I think that he is a little bit of a step behind in the wrestling and the grappling, and this is a very similar stylistic matchup to that Carlos Fernandez fight, but I guess you could argue that Hyun Park isn't as good at the pure wrestling as Carlos Fernandez is, and maybe Carlos Fernandez, you could argue, is a better striker than what Hyun Park is, because I don't think that Hyun Park striking is that bad, to be honest. I think that it's kind of good enough for him to get where he needs to go, but I do think that Hyun Park can go out there against Nyamjargal and just kind of not get knocked out on the feet, and I think that he can push for 3 rounds. We know that Nyamjargal, he showed decent cardio in his most recent fight, but we have seen Nyamjargal gas out in the past, so that's always something to look out for if Hyun Park does start to put a bit of a pace on him in the second and the third round. But I do think that Hyun Park comes out there and he wins a decision in this fight. Now we move up to Quillan Salkilld fighting against the GOAT, Anshul Jubli. Anshul Jubli is an interesting one for me, man, because I genuinely was an Anshul Jubli believer. I thought that this guy was, had the potential to be pretty good, and I saw him fight on the road to UFC fight against Kyung Pyo Kim, and in that fight against Kyung Pyo Kim, I thought he showed a lot of promise. He is a grappler that he struck with Kyung Pyo Kim for 3 rounds, and he won the decision there. I thought that he looked like he had quite a bit going on, that he could improve on, but I thought he looked like he had a pretty good base for that. And then he fought against Jeka Saragi, dominated him in the grappling, and kind of showcased a weakness there in Saragi's game. And then he lost to Breeden. Breeden, he didn't look too bad against Breeden, but it's Mike Breeden. He eventually did get knocked out in the 3rd round. This, to me, this kind of matchup stylistically does kind of make me think that the UFC doesn't think that Anshul Jubli is going to be the face of Indian MMA in the promotion. Like, maybe that's going to be Pooja Tomar, or maybe eventually it could be Angad Bisht or someone along those lines. It makes me kind of think that they're just going to give Salkilld a pretty winnable matchup, in my opinion, here, to maybe build him out of Australia, because Quillan Salkilld had a massive fight. Of course, he fought against Gage Young, and Gage Young, he's actually won since then. He won by knockout in the 2nd round in regional promotion. I think it was FAC again, but yeah, since then, he's already got another win, so Salkild's win has aged pretty well, and that was a banger, too. That fight was 3 hard-fought rounds by all those guys. Quillan Salkilld showcased that he does have solid boxing, he does have solid grappling. For the most part, when it come to it, it was that pretty slick boxing that Salkilld showcased, and we just saw Anshul Jubli get knocked out by Mike Breeden, who I don't think's boxing, pure boxing, is as slick as Quillan Salkild's. I'm going to go with Quillan Salkilld here now. He is a pretty high confidence pick for me. I do think that the UFC's just kind of given up on the King of Lions here in this fight. Now we move up to Kevin Jousset fighting against Jonathan Micallef. Another debuting fighter here in Micallef. There's going to be a lot of debuting fighters on this card. Kevin Jousset fighting, of course, out of New Zealand, fighting out of Auckland from CKB, taking on the local, the Australian Jonathan Micallef. Micallef is kind of an interesting fighter to me, you know, because I wasn't super high on him. I will openly admit, going into the Contender Series, I did pick Muhammad Adu to beat him, and Muhammad Adu just kind of showcased that this guy might have the worst fight IQ I have ever seen in my entire life. But beside that, I think Adu has lost since then as well, so I mean that fight IQ's got him nowhere. But anyway, Micallef, he's a solid grappler, but on the feet I think this is where Jousset can showcase his skill set, because Micallef on the feet, I feel like he kind of does just rely on his pressure, and I do think he is quite hittable. He really does just want to come forward very often and throw his strikes while moving forward, but I think that he is hittable on the feet, and I think that he could be beaten by someone that is a good enough striker to defend the takedowns, and I think that could be Kevin Jousset. Now, Kevin Jousset, of course, is coming off a pretty bad loss to Brian Battle, and in that fight, Brian Battle, like, genuinely just looked like, he kind of made Jousset look like Jousset was a basic striker. Brian Battle looked really good in that matchup, and it made me think that Jousset's striking looks really robotic. Just kind of the way that he throws body shots is very odd. He just kind of throws them from his hips. It's a very odd striking style to witness, but it's worked for him relatively well so far. And in this matchup, I do think that Jousset can keep the fight on the feet, and as long as it is, he's going to be doing more damage, he's going to be landing more. We've seen that Jousset can grapple, I mean, but that was, of course, against Keeper Crosby, who just begged him to submit him with a rear naked choke by putting both hands on the ground. Yeah, I think that Kevin Jousset does win this one, though, with the striking. I think he can defend the takedowns. And don't forget, Jousset does, of course, have that judo background he can lean on if all goes to it. Now we have Cody Steele fighting against Rongzhu. Rongzhu he's interesting to me, you know, because I was really excited about Rongzhu making his big return to the UFC after being released from the promotion, and then he won for UAE Warriors, and he was back. He was back on the road to UFC tournament, and it looks like the problems that he had in the UFC, which of course was the weight cutting clearly here, but also just being a little bit too aggressive, leaving himself too open, despite once again having 25 professional fights, looking like he did still lack quite a bit of experience. And it looked like he had fixed all of that in the road to UFC, you know, because he did take out some very good guys in there. Shin Haraguchi is a very, very good wrestler, and he defeated him by just beating him up on the feet. But then against Padilla, it looked like he kind of just thrown away all of those improvements that he made prior to the tournament and just fought Padilla with reckless abandon. He was just coming forward, he was throwing big, he was landing pretty big in moments, but he was just trying to go into war with Chris Padilla instead of just being the technical striker that I thought that he had become in this time away from the Road to UFC tournament and from getting released from the promotion. He now takes on Cody Steele. Cody Steele is one of the guys that I think you need to look out for from the Contender Series of 2024. He's going to be one of the better prospects at 155 pounds. Now, to be fair, Rongzhu isn't going to be the easiest debut for anyone. Yes, he is a striker taking on a grappler, but Rongzhu does still, at the end of the day, have 31 professional fights. This is a pretty crazy gap in experience here against these two guys. But Cody Steele, we know he's got an insane grappling background. The wrestling is really good as well. The boxing has truly been coming along too, and he has been making rapid improvements, because we have seen in the past Cody Steele, I believe it was this matchup against Echeverry, or it could have been the Whitehead fight. I believe it was this one where Echeverry was landing a lot of shots in the boxing against Steele, And yes, Steele did end up winning that fight, but he was getting hit a lot. He was getting tagged a lot. We recently saw him look very good against a short notice opponent, Jason Blair, after he was, well, meant to fight Kamel Atoni, which would have been insane. I think that Cody Steele goes out there. I think he can get the takedowns against Rongzhu. It is worth noting, though, that Rongzhu has shown really good takedown defense against Shin Haraguchi, who is a junior world freestyle wrestling champion. But Shin Haraguchi is also 5'6" and is honestly probably a bantamweight, despite I think he has fought at 145 pounds recently. I think that we do see Steele go out there. I think he gets it done. I think he gets it done with the grappling, though. I'm going to go with the Steele submission win here. Now, Aleksandre Topuria fights against Colby Thicknesse. I do think that Topuria wins this fight. There's kind of a lot to talk about with this one. I think a lot of people are quite interested in the Topuria versus Thicknesse matchup. Thicknesse is apparently one of Volk's main training partners. I'll be honest, watching his tape, I couldn't really tell, but I guess maybe just Volk really is just like an absolute machine. And Aleksandre Topuria is Ilia Topuria's brother, and he fights the exact same. He's got the same back tattoo as Ilia Topuria. Now, I do think that Aleksandre does have more holes in his game, and he does have a little bit of a slightly different style to Ilia, in the fact that I feel like Topuria utilizes his wrestling significantly more than Ilia does, but in the boxing it really is very similar. Obviously not as technical as Ilia Topuria, but he is just coming forward, spamming the hooks like Ilia Topuria likes to do. Aleksandre does the exact same thing. And the original matchup was a Topuria versus Cody Haddon. Haddon is an insane prospect at 135 pounds. I think that he could potentially go very far in the division. And I was going to pick Haddon to defeat Topuria. But now that we've got a completely different matchup, I think that I'm going to have to go with Aleksandre Topuria to defeat Colby Thicknesse here. When I was watching tape on Thicknesse, I was very impressed by the pure grappling. But I do worry a little bit about him in the fact that I feel like Thicknesse, his pure grappling is really good. But I worry about the striking in this fight. You know, Thicknesse, he does have a very interesting striking style where he does use his length pretty well. But I was a little bit worried about the striking defense. The hands were pretty high up there. I was seeing him getting hit with a couple of shots every now and then. And Aleksandre Topuria, he is just going to come forward and just throw bombs and look for takedowns. So it's kind of an interesting fight. Like, does it finish under 2.5 rounds or 1.5 rounds or whatever it is? Because Thicknesse is going to have a very good grappling threat. And Topuria is going to have a knockout threat on the feet, but also a grappling threat on the ground as well. I'm going to pick Topuria. I think that minus 400, though, is ridiculous. This is actually a pretty decent matchup, I feel, for both guys. Now, Thicknesse, of course, being a short notice fighter, apparently only signed a 1-fight deal with the promotion too, and that does explain why a lot of guys are getting signed, fighting on short notice, and then we just don't see them again. Maybe UFC's done giving short notice guys 4-fight deals, but I mean, at this point, I could argue that Thicknesse deserves a 4-fight UFC deal, you know, despite taking it on short notice. He's 7-0 on the regional scene in Australia, but I do think Topuria can go out there and get it done. He's been very inactive, though, so it's hard to tell how good he's going to be. I mean, his loss was 10 years ago, but I mean, if he's truly been training with Ilia the whole time, I don't really have too much doubts that he's going to be improving, and I think he can go out there against Thicknesse and get the job done. Now, Wang fights against Bruna, Brasil. Wang lost as a big favorite recently against Gabriela Fernandez. In that fight, she hurt Gabriela Fernandez and just got way too aggressive, got caught, got subbed. Bad loss to take, very bad loss to take considering the expectations that I have had for Wang in the past. And still do, I still think that Wang could maybe make it up there into the rankings at some point, but that's a tough lesson to learn. You know, she just was getting too aggressive. She got caught being too aggressive. And I think that that's hopefully a lesson that she can learn from in this matchup. And I don't think that Bruna Brasil is going to be the fighter that can really do that to her. That can really punish her. Actually, what weight class is that? 125. Okay, that does help Wang a lot in this fight. Bruna Brasil is a Muay Thai striker. She likes to fight from range. She likes to acknowledge her work. You know, we saw her just getting absolutely lit up and demolished by Denise Gomes a couple of years ago. She doesn't like getting hit. She doesn't like getting backed up. Wang has proven that she's a good enough striker that she can back up, she can pressure, she can throw down. I'm going to go Wang Tiong. I'm going to go Wang Tiong by KO. No longer a super confident pick, just kind of with the loss, but I think stylistically, this is a really good fight for Wang Tiong. We've got a Muay Thai striker versus a kickboxer that does still hold that win over Valentina Shevchenko. I think that Wang Tiong goes out there and she still does get it done. This is a tough fight for me to pick because it is Tom Nolan fighting against Viacheslav Borchiev. You guys know I love Tom Nolan, man. Tom Nolan is one of the fighters that has given my channel and me a lot of support. And also I do know that people that know Tom Nolan will be watching this video as well. But I love Borchiev as well. I've been a big fan of Borchiev since before he was even on the Contender Series. Borchiev, allegedly hundreds of amateur kickboxing fights, Russian national kickboxing champion. And you do see it in his fights. He is a very good technical striker. But he does have still, despite training at Team Alpha Male for years now, a very big hole in his game, and that is that takedown defense. And we've seen him take him down time and time again. I think that it was against, who was it? The Muay Thai fighter that decided that he was going to become the most boring fighter on the roster overnight. Who was it? Mark Diakese. That was where it was really first exposed, and then it has been exposed a couple of times since then. Tom Nolan, though, on the other hand, I've been very high on Tom Nolan. I've been singing his praises for a long time. I think that his ceiling is the moon, really. Honestly, he's 6'3" at 155 pounds. Very likely one of the biggest lightweights on the roster. Standing at a true 6'3", a pretty decent sized 6'3" as well. Almost like Joel Alvarez sort of build. But I think that we have seen a couple of things kind of being shown that he does have a little bit of a weakness there. He can be, and I think still has been, even in his last fight, which did go all the distance, just kind of going out there looking for highlight reel finishes, really trying to go out there and get the finish, get the knockout. And I think that he has been a little bit overzealous in moments there, and I feel like in the fight against Alex Reyes, it was a good opportunity for him to go out there and get 15 minutes of experience, because if you really think about it, Tom Nolan, you know, he was 8 fights into his UFC career at that point, a lot of them finishing pretty early on into the fight, despite one of his first ones going the distance. So that was good experience, I think, for Tom Nolan, but now I think he is going to be taking a big step up in competition again. And Borchiev, despite us seeing getting knocked down by Chase Hooper, which did happen, Borchiev's a tough guy to deal with, man. It does really pain me to pick this fight because, as I said, I like Tom Nolan. Tom Nolan's been a supporter of my channel as well, and I just don't want to stab him in the back like this. But I just kind of look at this fight, and I think that Borchiev, just kind of being the more experienced striker, the guy that, you know, I think that he can maybe give Tom Nolan a bit of trouble if Tom Nolan does try to get a little bit too aggressive in there. I've got to side with Borchiev in this matchup. I actually think that it goes the distance. I think a lot of people don't see that. I think the fight does go 3 rounds. I would like to see Tom Nolan maybe get some of that wrestling in there, because I have seen Tom Nolan go out there and wrestle and showcase really good ground and pound, but I'm sure that him and his team have a really good game plan for this fight. Very unfortunate, and with a very heavy heart, I have to side with Borchiev. Now we go with Jack Jenkins fighting against Gabriel Santos. I saw this fight initially and thought, hey, I'll pick Jack Jenkins. You know, everyone was really high on Jack Jenkins when I wasn't high on Jack Jenkins. You know, Jack Jenkins went to war with Don Shainis. Everyone thought that this guy was the next Volkanovski. He then went to a close fight with Jamal Emmers, which I thought he lost, but Jamal Emmers was coming off that fraud check over the 23-0 guy. It was like Hussein Ashkabov or something like that. And then he got injured, and that is a sad loss. But then he come back against Herbert Burns, and in that fight against Herbert Burns, that was a gimme. That was a layup for him, and I feel like Jack Jenkins just didn't really showcase that layup. Now, I know that Herbert Burns is a very good grappler, but we have seen Herbert Burns get dealt with so much easier by other people. And Gabriel Santos is like Herbert Burns, but really good at striking. And the reason why I say that is because Gabriel Santos can grapple. You know, we saw him give Lerone Murphy on very short notice a lot of grappling issue. And he went 0-2 to start his career. You know, of course, he lost to David Onama. Very sad moment. I was nearly in tears when it happened. But Santos is good. Santos had an insane LFA run prior to coming into the UFC and just started off against 2 pretty decent guys in the promotion. Of course, the one loss coming to Lerone Murphy on short decision. He won short notice. He won the LFA tournament, the 145-pound tournament, against two very good guys. Marcio Barbosa has proven to become a very solid fighter. He's gone on a massive win streak since then. He's an absolute savage. So many first-round win KOs. Jose Delano since then has also gone undefeated, beaten some really good opponents. These wins have aged well for him. But talking about this fight stylistically, I think Jack Jenkins is going to find success with the leg kicks that he is very well known for, of course. But I think in this fight, though, Gabriel Santos, I think he can give problems to Jack Jenkins in the striking, but also in the grappling as well. So I am going to have to kind of side with Gabriel Santos in this one to win by decision. I initially picked Jack Jenkins. That was my initial feeling. My pick has flipped. My pick doesn't often flip. So yeah, we'll see how this one goes. I'm going to have to go with Santos, and 80% of people are picking Jenkins on Tapology. I did not know that many people are on him, so that'll be interesting. Another fight that is pretty hard to pick because Francisco Prado, he's a bit of a legend, I would say, in the channel. This guy has gone out there and he has put on some very fun fights so far in his career. We saw him destroy Otman Azaitar when he got him down to the ground, just smoked him. And then he had that fight of the night performance against Daniel Silhuber. And before that, he did fight for, I would say at this point, the legendary Samurai Fight House promotion taking place over there in Argentina. But now he steps up to 170 pounds. And, it is very easy for me to sit here and say, why doesn't he stay at 155? I've had this argument with people before about people like Austin Bashi and stuff like that. But I've never personally viewed Francisco Prado as a big lightweight that needs to move up to 170 pounds. But I have also heard that Francisco Prado walks around at a very heavy weight. And if the weight that he truly does walk around at is true, then yes, he probably should be fighting at 170 pounds. So I'll keep that one private because I don't think that's meant to be shared. But yeah, Prado has been walking around at a much heavier weight than 155. So maybe 170 is going to be a good move for him. And I would be like to see him go out there and get the win. But the thing about Jake Matthews is, this guy he's really inconsistent. Sometimes he looks really good. Sometimes he gets outboxed by Matt Simmelsberger. I'll never forget the moment where he went out there, where was it, against Andre Fialho, when Andre Fialho was on his legendary run, which was cut very short, probably by Jake Matthews himself, actually. He outboxed Andre Fialho. And Fialho, despite having no chin, this and that, Fialho was a really good boxer. Jake Matthews outboxed him. And then he proceeded to get absolutely smoked by Simmelsberger for the 3 rounds and look like an absolute shell of himself months later. I don't know what's up with Jake Matthews. This guy does have a grappling background. We don't see him grapple as much as I feel like we probably should. And he takes on Prado, who's going to be dangerous on the feet. I don't necessarily think that Prado's the most technical guy, but he does make up for it with a lot of power in his hands. And I think that the reason why this is on the main card is because Prado is going to bring the heat. This is going to be a fun fight. It is guaranteed. But I feel like, I don't know, Jake Matthews is due for a good performance, man. I feel like we haven't really seen Jake Matthews at his peak in a while now at this point. So I feel like maybe Jake Matthews just kind of being the more well-rounded fighter. If anyone's going to go for takedowns, I think it is going to be Jake Matthews. And ultimately, I do think that Matthews is going to win a decision in this one. Prado will always be live for a knockout win, of course. Now we move up. Jimmy Crute fighting against Rodolfo Bellato. I have lost all faith in Jimmy Crute, but at the same time, I also don't believe that Rodolfo Bellato is that great. I'll be honest with you. He did, of course, lose to Vitor Petrino, and that was a rematch on the Contender Series. Bellato had lost to Petrino before on the regional scene, and they fought for a second time. Bellato's a grappler, Petrino's a striker, kind of a pretty fun idea, but Petrino was going for the takedowns in that fight as well, which was odd. Since then, he beat Murtaza Talha Ali. Talha, I picked Talha with a lot of confidence. I didn't realize that this guy had no leg. I think Talha had literally, like, what is it when you, like, sprain your ACL or something like that? He fought Talha with the one leg, and then proceeded to nearly get knocked out by Iho Potiria. Jimmy Crute's biggest problem in his entire career, and I don't know if he would admit this or not, but someone's got to say it. Jimmy Crute has always relied too much on his striking. Jimmy Crute is not a striker. This guy is a grappler. He cannot strike, he cannot box, he needs to stay away from the striking as much as he possibly can. He knocked out Bukauskas one time and all of a sudden thought that he was going to be the next Israel Adesanya at 205 pounds. Next Alex Pereira, I guess you could say. He went in that fight against Alonzo Minifield, was getting smoked on the feet multiple times, and then he decided to fight Minifield again, which was probably career suicide in hindsight. But I mean, we all cashed out big on betting on Minifield in that fight. But Crute, I think he's still got something in him. Like, surely he can't be this watched at 29 years old. Rodolfo Velato, this guy will very more than likely prove me wrong throughout his career. I've been proven wrong many times by people that I haven't really been super high on, and then they've turned out to be really good. But Bellato, I'm not that sold on Bellato, man. I'm gonna have to go with Jimmy Crute. Jimmy Crute's grappling at 205 pounds is really solid. If he loses this fight, he's gonna be cut from the promotion. He's probably done. He needs to win this. I feel like he will win this if he just doesn't strike with Bellato. But even then, Bellato's not that good at striking anyway. So yeah, I feel like I've rambled about this one for long enough. Crute is the pick. I think that Crute can go out there and get it done. There's no way he's that washed at 29. Now we have Thaleson Teixeira fighting against Justin Tafa. Now, I don't know if this is like a pick out of spite or out of potential bias or anything like that. When Big Marcel posted this on his Instagram, Teixeira versus Tafa, the fight was announced. I commented saying, "Wow, tough debut for Thaleson Teixeira," and so many people replied saying, "No, it's not. What are you talking about? Teixeira's gonna smoke Tafa." And maybe since then I have held a little bit of spite in myself, you know, thinking this is a tough matchup for Teixeira. Justin Tafa, despite like whatever people seem to think about him, which is odd because Tafa has proven to be a very dangerous knockout artist at 265 pounds. Tafa is a tough debut for anybody. Do I think that Mario Pinto would beat Justin Tafa? Yes. But would Tafa be a tough debut for Mario Pinto? Yes. Yes, he would. Thaleson Teixeira, in my opinion, lost stock on his Contender Series matchup when he took on Arthur Lopez, a guy which I don't even know how they found this man. I have no idea how they found him. Arthur Lopez had fought once in 6 years, a win over a 3-4 opponent, and then since then, like, a lot of these fights potentially may have not even happened. I don't know. I think it was like one of these fighters that I was able to see on like YouTube Shorts, or maybe it was this fight I saw on YouTube Shorts. I don't know. Arthur Lopez was brought in out of nowhere for Teixeira to smoke because he looked really good on LFA, and he didn't. In 2 minutes, yes, the fight did last 2 minutes. He still went to war with Arthur Lopez, man. He was going out there. This guy's 6'7" with an 83-inch reach, and he was throwing down in the pocket with Arthur Lopez and getting hit by some pretty decent shots. You go out there, you throw down with Justin Tafa, his brother, Junior Tafa, a former top 10 Glory kickboxing heavyweight, who's obviously going to be one of his main sparring partners. Tafa knows how to strike in the pocket. I mean, just talk to Parker Porter about it, man. That man's probably never even been the same since Tafa knocked him out. Dude, I think Tafa's gonna go out there against Thaleson Teixeira, and if Teixeira doesn't do what he has done in the past in the LFA, what Teixeira did in the LFA was he used that height and range very well, and that's why I was so high on him going up there against Arthur Lopez, was because Teixeira, I knew that he fights from range. He does. He did in the LFA. He used the straight shots very well. You don't see that much at heavyweight. 6'7", 83-inch reach. Utilized those tools. Goes out there against Arthur Lopez. Throws down. He brawls. You can't brawl with Justin Tafa. Justin Tafa is a bad man. I mean, Justin Tafa's a guy that's going to knock you out if you do that. I think Tafa punishes Teixeira for going out there and leaving himself wide open. And I think that Tafa goes out there and takes home the win by knockout in what I don't think is his hometown. I mean, he was born in New Zealand, but like I think he lives in Brisbane. I don't know my geography of Australia that well. Home country. Anyway, let's move on. Weili Zhang takes on Tatiana Suarez. I think that Weili Zhang does win this matchup. Now, Tatiana Suarez, of course, I feel like has been deserving of a title shot for a while now. And Weili Zhang, she's in my bad books because she doesn't fight often enough. Weili Zhang has free legacy Free legacy, just waiting for her if she fought every 6 months, every 7, every 8 months. Free legacy. There really is, aside from Tatiana Suarez, I think you could make a fair argument. No one at 115 pounds right now that Weili Zhang would lose to. Weili Zhang would knock out Mackenzie Dern. Free legacy. Weili Zhang would beat Verna Jandiroba. Free legacy. There's just free legacy out there. She could like be undisputed, become one of the greatest fighters of all time in the women's part of MMA, and she just doesn't fight often enough. What is she doing? She is annoying me. She's nearly 36 years old at this point. That free legacy isn't going to last forever because we are seeing pretty decent improvements from some of the contenders now at 115 pounds. But Weili Zhang. Talk about Weili Zhang. She's really good, man. And the thing about Weili Zhang is she has been a striker throughout nearly her entire career. I would say most of her career, especially in the UFC. But that wrestling's really come along. You know, we've been seeing her actually utilize that wrestling to go out there and win fights. Her fight against Nyamjargal was pretty legendary. She had submission attempts in there. Nyamjargal was finding success on the feet early in that matchup. And she ended up using their wrestling and won the fight that way. Did the same thing to Limoges. Used their wrestling, utilized her well-rounded game to win that fight. Out-wrestled Carla Esparza, 3 fights in 2 years. What are you doing? Tatiana Suarez is now 34 years old, but she hasn't been that active because of that really, really unfortunate injury situation. She never got injured like she did because she got injured multiple times. She got injured in recovery for another injury. There was a lot going on there. She would have been a champion by now and hopefully would have utilized this free legacy that the women's strawweight division does bring. Since then, she come back against Montana De La Rosa. Arguably lost the first round against De La Rosa. Arguably, I don't know. She didn't look that good in her return, but it was her first fight in 5 years, so I can kind of leave her to it. But then against Andrade. Andrade is Andrade. You just never know what's going to show up because she always is just accepting short notice fights at this point. I guess she get to go out there and get it done. But despite I think it being Tatiana Suarez's time to get a title shot, I can't see her beating Weili Zhang. Weili Zhang, I think, can defend the takedowns, and I also think that Weili Zhang can look good on the feet. Now, in the past, if you go way back, Tatiana Suarez has had takedowns defended quite a lot by strikers in the past, and Weili Zhang, she's a good striker with decent takedown defense and good wrestling herself. I'm just going to have to go with Zhang in this matchup. And we move up to the main event. I guess me and Sean Strickland are buzz cut buddies as well. I mean, I don't know if I really wanted to be buzz cut buddies with Sean Strickland. I'd rather be buzz cut buddies with Bitsam, but Dricus du Plessis, of course, now defends his title against the man that he snatched that title off of in a split decision win in Sean Strickland. And I do think that Dricus du Plessis wins again. The thing is, I picked Sean Strickland to beat Dricus du Plessis the first time. I thought that Sean Strickland, honestly, after looking so good against Israel Adesanya, could have been the champion for a long time. I'm not even joking. But yeah, Dricus du Plessis, I think that the thing about him in that fight was just the fight IQ. Sean Strickland, I don't know what it is about him. I think it might just be mental driven or just maybe just doesn't practice this. He doesn't wrestle, and I think he needed to. The thing about that du Plessis versus Strickland fight, it was so close. But what it come down to was du Plessis mixed it up. Du Plessis would land on the feet, 90 seconds to go left in the round. Du Plessis would shoot a takedown. He would get that takedown. He'd land some ground and pound. He would try to get in a position to get a submission, this and that. He would steal the rounds of Strickland. And Strickland could have and should have been doing the exact same thing to DDP. Also shooting takedowns. Also trying to steal the rounds. And he refused to. He just refuses to wrestle in matchups which I think he would be quite advantageous to him to wrestle. Now, the thing about du Plessis, though, that we saw recently is he fought Israel Adesanya, who is now lost, of course, to Imavov, like literally last week. I don't know why I had to think about that for so long. Adesanya, in that matchup, was looking good against DDP, but DDP just kind of kept coming forward, and he landed some big shots on Adesanya before finding that sub, and it kind of made me think, DDP, despite looking off balance at all moments, despite looking like he had probably had 6 or 7 beers, maybe even a nose beer, before coming out to the octagon, he just finds ways to win, doesn't he? And he must hit bloody hard, considering the fact that he cracked Izzy with shots that didn't even look like he'd really wound them up that much, or even had the intention to hurt Izzy that much. And Izzy was getting rocked. He was getting hurt. And we've never really seen Izzy rocked or hurt like that in the past. I mean, aside from from against Alex Pereira. And that's really it, you know? And I feel like DDP, he lands pretty hard. Sean Strickland just runs forward. He just marches forward. He just boxes. He does his parries. I know they're called parries, guys, but I like to call them slaps. He just slaps. He literally just slaps away the punches. He does the same shit. That's all he does, man. He doesn't change up his fight style at all. He doesn't wrestle. He doesn't try and make things just a little bit different. He doesn't threaten the takedown. He doesn't do any of that. DDP does. And that's what it comes down to. I think DDP is going to go out there, and I think that he is going to just kind of mix in the takedowns, mix in the striking. I mean, cardio is always the thing with DDP. I know people, like, I was even saying it, oh, it's just because he breathes out of his mouth, but he's had his nose surgery now, and against Adesanya, he genuinely looked like he was gassed out in the second round. I'm not even joking, but he just finds a way to win. He just keeps coming forward. I'm picking DDP. I'm picking DDP by finish in this one. I think that he can go out there and finish Sean Strickland this time around. I know that there are Strickland believers out there. Maybe I should be a Strickland believer because we are Buzz Cut buddies, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I'm going to have to go with Dricus du Plessis in this matchup. I think he does go out there and get a finish. More than likely a submission, because I do believe du Plessis is going to mix in the grappling this time around a little bit more, because it did work so well the first time around. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next one.